really excited about this program. And I wanted to focus not only on Evan, who's just terrific, but on Youth Poet Laureate programs that the various counties have, because I think it's so important to do what's necessary to stimulate youth participation and the love of poetry. So thank all of you. Moonstone does about 100 poetry readings a year. We publish about 35 books. Evan joined us, and I think he was 16 when he, when he came to one of our New Voices programs. We do 2 books a year. Philadelphia is a poetry center. And there are probably multiple programs every day of the week that one can go to, which is great. The whole country should be that good.
First of all, thank you very much, Larry, for this opportunity to host tonight and to be the person that introduces these amazing youth poet laureates and poetry experts, I guess, the youth, up and coming youth. Thank you for everything you do for poetry and poets in the area, young and seasoned, and all the publications. You're such a force. We really appreciate everything you do. Tonight we have our featured reader who will begin, the National Youth Poet Laureate, and along with the current Youth Poet Laureates from Montgomery County, Bucks County, Delaware County, and Philadelphia. So I'll tell you a little bit about Montgomery County Youth Poet Laureate program. The Montgomery County, PA Youth Poet Laureate program is designed to award a young poet ages 14 to 18 the title of Youth Poet Laureate who is well-versed in poetic expression, exemplifies a deep understanding of poetic language, exhibits uniqueness and newness, and shows appreciation for all art forms. And our Youth Poet Laureate serves from April to March. So now I'd like to introduce the National Youth Poet Laureate of the United States, Evan Wang. Welcome, Evan. Thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight. What a thrill. Evan is the author of Slow Burn, published by Northwestern University Press in 2026, winner of the Drinking Gourd Poetry Chapbook Prize. His work has appeared in Poetry Magazine, the Kenyon Review, Wax Wing, and elsewhere, and has been featured at and recognized by the White House, Button Poetry, NPR, TEDx, and more. Evan is currently working on a new choral piece premiering in June 2026 by the Mendelssohn Chorus, of Philadelphia at Rodef Shalom, the oldest Ashkenazic, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, synagogue in the Western Hemisphere. Evan, please share your poetry.
Thank you so much, Joanne, for that wonderful, wonderful introduction. It's always a joy to be in your company. And to reiterate what you said about Moonstone, I also have to thank Larry so much for all of his work in Philadelphia and in literature in general. Moonstone was genuinely my beginning of my poetry career. And without Moonstone and the New Voices program, which is absolutely wonderful, you all should submit, I would not be here today. So thank you, Larry, and thank you, Joanne, for all the work you do. I will be reading 3 short poems today to give more time and space to these wonderful youth poet laureates that we have in the room with us. And I will begin with the piece that is more recent, and it's titled Settlement, inspired by Maggie Smith and a wonderful movie I watched that I forget the name of, but it was amazing. Settlement. America is wide, and we should not travel. America is wide, and along the short grass of pure, beautiful country, I have witnessed this land return hostile. the flowers flattened by a prison body, sundowns warmer than my flag in flames, the assailants cheering in the church of night. I will spend my entire life avoiding those lands. My entire life I will devote to always being exiled from a land, always a border within a border. When I hold this fact, the land shifts. It grows into a country who will destroy love with warships. It shrinks into a lover's iris, washed with dreams of an undivided field. I want so badly to believe them, saying there is, after all, possibility of settlement here. In the rough, between age-old mountains, our hands in the wide air. How lovely it would be running through America, saying we are the land. Thank you. Snap, 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 snap. Hey. Okay, so this next piece is inspired by my time at the Smithsonian this summer. I was there at the Folklife Festival performing for the Smithsonian Institution, and it was such a formative experience just because I was surrounded by so much art and beauty. They had so many museums that I could just pop around in. So instead of performing there, I was touring most of the museums during my free time, and I was in the National Portrait Gallery, I think it's National Gallery of the Art. Beautiful, beautiful place. They had so many different artworks, and I was in the contemporary section where I found this one piece called Relative by Sam Gilliam. And I just sat there and I just watched it for 30 minutes or so. People probably thought it was crazy, but it inspired this piece. It's titled The Artist. As the night moves on, I think about how home has a definition, that we have a definition too. Does poetry or love require a definition? Is everything not relative to everything around them? In DC, there hangs a sheet of unstretched canvas in a gallery, strung up in bundles. The artist had drowned it in paint, and where colors chose to gather depended on the height of each bundle. I sat on the metal bench across from its desperate shape. Leg crossed over leg, and around me, the gallery was empty. Perhaps because I've entered the gallery, it finally emptied. 3 security guards watched from the entryway while I sat there. They saw how I wore my solitude, how I questioned questions. One of the few truths in art is there is no such thing as random, nor is there such a thing as certain. All things are on their way to desire. Everything wants to be changed by something. What I wanted as a kid was to forget these cruel definitions. Like us all, I grew to only write them. Thank you. Snap it up. Okay, so last piece. So sad. But this is my most recent piece. I wouldn't even call it finished. I'd call it a draft because I was actually just doing finishing touches right before this event. And it was inspired by my move here to college. I'm currently at Harvard. And to all the Youth Poet Laureates who are not in college yet, that move-in is gonna kill you. And that you're gonna miss your parents. You're gonna feel so far away from home. But trust me that you're gonna make it through and you're gonna acclimate. But those first few days, Lord, it's tough. So this is what inspired, well, that experience is what inspired this poem, this feeling of missing my parents, seeing them go back to Philadelphia. Oh, so this is titled Fragments. Oh, and there is a Mandarin sentence in here that basically translates to, I looked pretty decent 10 years ago, right? Which is a question my mom asked me. Broke my heart. Fragments. My mom sends me a picture of herself 10 years ago. 10年前我还挺好看的，对吧？ Time escapes like breath does in panic. Time is a nail clipping I step on while sweeping someplace new. How does she feel helping me move into this new life? Brown box by brown box, my memory remembers. How freeing it was to free flies from the room of dust. How quickly they become small, strange, wandering in a distant light. Can she return to counting those same fattening years? I can never return to the same home twice. I will be on the outside of insides. Do me a favor. Gather me. Make me her food, bland and lovely. Outside, new voices, blowing across the front lawn. Behind me, no one. Behind me, nothing. Thank you. And I look forward to hearing all the other Youthful Laureates' works.
Thank you so much, Evan. That was beautiful. So now I have the honor and privilege to introduce Professor Ethel Rackin, who coordinates the Bucks County Poet Laureate program. Ethel has been teaching language and literature at Bucks County Community College, also finds time to pursue her passion, writing. Ethel, would you please introduce your poet laureate?
Absolutely. More than happy to do so. Hello, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you to Larry and Joanne for all you do for the art of poetry. And thanks to all of you practitioners for keeping it going and improving upon what's come before. It's really inspiring. Thank you, Evan, for your amazing reading. So it's a pleasure to introduce to you Nilüfer Bektas, but before I do, I'll just say a couple words about our program in Bucks County. Our program, the Bucks County High School Poet of the Year program, grew out of the Bucks County Poet Laureate program, which is the oldest such program in the state. So the Bucks County Poet Laureate program was founded in 1977. And in 1988, when that program was officially moved to Bucks County Community College, where it has resided ever since, the then director and professor at Bucks, who led up the program, started the youth program under that auspices, so 1988. The way our program works is each year in the spring, the current Bucks County Poet Laureate, as well as the previous laureate, select a winner. And this year it was out of more than 120 entries from students across Bucks County. So we have a really thriving program and quite a competitive program. Out of that group, they were very, very strong this year for 2025. But out of that group, there was a clear winner in Nilüfer Bektas. Nilüfer was presented with this honor in the spring, did a public reading at the college, was presented to the county commissioners where she received an official proclamation. And I am just so excited about Nilüfer's work. Nilüfer Bektas is a high school senior whose poetry stems from her Turkish American Muslim identity. She loves playing her trumpet and experimenting in her writing. Nilüfer's searing, lyrically adept poems, as I say, rose to the top of more than 120 entries from across Bucks County to win the 2025 competition. As Judge Tara Tamburello put it, as a collection, these poems tell a moving, heartbreaking story about an immigrant family's American experience. Each poem contains powerful images and careful word choice. The inclusion of Turkish words in key places succinctly adds rich flavor and depth to these poems. The poet's voice is mature and resolute. And as our current Bucks County Poet Laureate, Lake Angela, put it, from deeply personal poems, we witness images all too common to immigrant experiences here and now. The complex dance of suffering and love within the immediate family reflects the macrocosm in, quote, the weight of the Tashi lassoed as a necklace of rope, end quote. We sense the clutch of a vaster patriarchal religious system, and from the body unnaturally, quote, strewn up to the necrosing bowels of the American system, we cannot look away. Meanwhile, the poet's beautiful language, repetition, and rhythm make a new kind of sermon, a better one. So please join me in welcoming Nilüfer Bektas.
Hello, everyone. Before I begin, I just want to apologize if you saw my name repeatedly coming up as joining, leaving, joining. I had technical difficulties, so I'm really sorry about that. But I'm so grateful for this opportunity, and I'm just so thankful for Professor Ethel, the judges, and everyone here today. So without further ado, I'll start right now. The first poem is titled Heat Lightning, and it's dedicated to my father. I know the body of a father. Fickle flames cling to every fiber, and incendiary ashes fill the air. A quiet stirring, a peal of thunder. I know the body of a man that learned to grow up so fast, too quick for his own good, and I know the body of a boy who fumbled over words in a language not his own. I know how he was not accustomed to the frost, and how his fire, his heat, his blood diminished. I know how dreams dissipate, how they taste like sugary sap of rose, and I know the body of a child reared in a country not his own. I hear it in the night, my father pleading for the Realar to cease, for a moment of silence. The thunderclap of souls on cement, I know how the body yearns to run. And as previously mentioned, I do use some Turkish words in my poem. So the word Realar means dreams. So I know my father pleading for the dreams to cease. The next poem is titled Liberty. If a dream is liberty, doused in decay, tarnished in copper green, brandished with tainted legacies and bastardized ideologies, engulfed in indifference to the masses of shattered nation with open bowels gushing out American patriotism, then I will stay awake, America, in your wake. And for my final poem, it is called Bruxism, Bruxism. There is a bolter of bonfires beneath my back molars, split-second flares like cornered animals, like accents sparking like flint beneath teeth, like not belonging, like never belonging, fleeting fireworks, like fading memories, like not being American enough, like knowing too much, like knowing not enough and fearing it's enough. Something bursts, through the cracks. And that's it for the meeting, just those three. Thank you all.
And now I have the privilege of introducing Cheri Crow, who co-coordinates the Delco Young Poets Competition and Awards, the longest running youth poetry competition in the area, founded by the Mad Poet Society in 1989. Ms. Crow is dedicated to providing quality children's services to families in the library and through outreach services. Help me welcome Cheri Crow.
Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here. Thank you so much. Thanks to the students and everybody here today. It's just for letting the libraries be part of everything you do. So I really appreciate it. I just want to also say that I'm here kind of representing Delaware County Libraries, but I've only been with the program for the last 8 years. As I said, I had worked in Montgomery County, but unfortunately, Joanne and I couldn't connect as well. Maybe Monco's a little bigger or whatever, but here in Delco, we were able to connect, and I think they had already started a relationship. So my love of poetry just kind of was I was so like I fit in that spot. I think I am not a poet, but I appreciate poetry and poets so much. So I'm so glad that Camille and Eileen both are so welcoming as Mad Poets and kind of took me under their wing about how to do the program. And ours is a contest where kids, usually around February, we start sending out invitations for poets to apply through the schools, everywhere in Delaware County that we can. The libraries are posting, the schools are posting, and in the last, I would say in the last 3 years, everything used to be mostly collected at the public library, which was a great, I think a great connection there. But in the last years after COVID, we've really had a lot of our submissions come online. I'd say last year, I think about 300 online out of the 600 or 700 that we do get. So we get a ton of entries. A lot of classrooms will send collections of poems for everyone especially in the younger grades. I think going online, I am very excited because I believe that the older students, they're not doing it as much as only a project in school, but we're hitting the poets who are really passionate about writing, and because they can just submit it on their own, not through their school. So any way we can get the word out is great, but I am glad that we've been able to offer that. And like I said, we have a celebration every year. We give awards first, second, and third place in first through 12th grades. Camille and Eileen have 12 wonderful judges that judge every year, and it's amazing because these are people who are out doing poetry all year long. They've written, published books. It's so amazing to me, and I think the kids are so inspired when they get to see them at the celebration, and it's just great for them to see that poets are out there. It's something you can do for the rest of your life. And the celebration is great because even the littlest guys, first graders up there, we had one this year who, I don't know who taught the kid how to speak, because it was just, I mean, like, I think the whole place was silent. Sometimes we don't know if the kids actually wrote the poems themselves, and then they come to the celebration and they speak, and your mind's just blown that a first grader has that much passion and everything. So anyway, great program. It's not about the programs today. So let me very quickly introduce Anika Fernandez. I don't know too much about Anika other than she's a one in 9th grade and 10th grade for our competition. And so sometimes once in a while we have repeat winners. And for this program, since we don't have a poet laureate, but maybe we could work on doing that for our Delaware County kids. I would love that. But we thought she was a perfect choice for today. So Anika, if you would tell us a little about yourself too, then I'll know a little more.
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Anika, and honestly, Delaware County Poetry Competition is what introduced me to poetry. I haven't really published a lot of my work or written a lot of work, but this got me into it, and whenever I feel like frustrated, like it's a great outlet for me. So yeah, I entered the competition in 8th grade. I ended up winning, and then ever since then, I've been entering again and again. So yeah, I also started a poetry club at my school, thanks to Delaware County. So this is like something that's been really important to me. So I'm gonna share 3 pieces from all 3 years that I've entered this competition, from 8th grade to most recently 10th grade. And they all kind of have a theme of academics and the expectations that are attached to them. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. They're pretty short. So the first one is called Burnt Out. A bright flame, burning tirelessly from the moment it was started. Seeming eternal, so strong it refused to give in no matter how hard the wind blew and the rain crashed. Blazing on, fueled by praises and compliments. Pushed forward, the fire grows. Yet the matchstick that started such an inferno is burnt out. Losing its fiery glow, starting to weaken, even a drop of water could smother the flames. Appearing strong and graceful, beautiful but destructive, delicate and dancing, dangerous as before, purposed and poised. Yet enclosed in the blaze, there is a secret, something no one can know, a hint of vulnerability, a chance that the fire did not have to be doused, that it could destroy itself, that it could be burnt out. Okay, yeah, that's my first one. Okay, my second one was the one I submitted in 9th grade, and it's called Overshadowed. Dear darkness, your presence casts over me. Why does your proximity envelop me so? Swallowing me whole, we, born the same, should get along as brothers. Yet, I feel as I am on the brink of vanishing when you saunter into a room, with the confidence that you can stand on your own, without simply following someone else's path. I revel in light's warm touch, but when you attempt to extend your embrace, I can only shirk away. It is not your fault, only mine, a foolish complex, my pathetic presence to blame. What purpose does my stay serve, you in your expansive form, superior? I cannot even end this letter, for saying love is something we both know is a lie, and regards is something much too formal for the complex relationship we share. Sincerely isn't quite right either, as I jot this letter down, rushing to complete before you cloak me again. Ironically, it is you who overshadows me. Love, regards, sincerely, your shadow. And then this is my third one, the most recent, and it's called Glass Limbs. Pirouettes in porcelain silence, spinning beneath a painted sky, caged in a gilded theater where the sweetest melody decides her fate. The key turns, she wakes, she dances, and she is watched. Eyes like daggers carve into her, measuring the angle of her arms, the height of her leap, the flaw in her fragile perfection. She's slowing, she's stiff, she's cracking at the seams. But still, she twirls, toes bleeding against the velvet floor, a smile etched in lacquered grief. For the repetitive song will not end. Faster, lighter, better. The music quickens, demands more, demands everything, and she bends until she is nothing but a blur of glass and dust. One last arabesque, one last trembling note, and then she shatters. The off-key music continues to play its annoying tune, and no one has noticed she has shattered. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anika, for sharing your poetry. Now, I get the privilege and honor to introduce to you today the 2025 Youth Poet Laureate of Montgomery County, Tina Ramberg-Michael. She is a sophomore at Cheltenham High School, and Montgomery County's 3rd Youth Poet Laureate. And Tina will serve until April 2026. Outside of school, Tina plays cello in 3 orchestras throughout Philadelphia, Montgomery County, and Bucks County. In her free time, she adores honing her creativity through making various projects with her hands, as well as learning new languages. Help me welcome Tina Ramberg-Michael.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Joanne, for that introduction. I have 2 poems for you today. They're both pretty short. Both of them are a little bit about God is mentioned in both of them, but that's not really what either one of them is about. And the first one is like a short snapshot of my experience as a youth poet. It's been like coming to mind again at the beginning of the school year when all the activities start again and it's impossible to find time to write. And trying to find time to write and what that looks like on the grander stage of like my family and the world. So, when I sit to write poetry at 5:45 a.m., the tide is on its way out, and birds huddle silently in my parents' shutters, while frost spines new strawberry plants. My bed remains unmade. As my little brother sleeps, a baby again with his eyes closed, and rain from last night's storm seeps underground, seeds the dry dirt. I know that there is war everywhere, and lives are vast, and God is unknowable, but here, in the chairs where I sit with my father, the lamp rises to our east like a ceramic angel. I write, he prays. Our activities are much the same, a worship of the falling tide and a rising sun, and the roots that spread beneath our home, snug in the dirt and cozy as anything. Thank you. Yeah, and my second poem is just, I wrote it a while ago, but I think of it again every time this time of year comes around. In the Jewish calendar, it's known as the High Holidays, and it's like the holiest days of the year. So it starts on Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year. I think that's next week, and it goes until Yom Kippur, and the 10 days in between are called the Days of Awe. And the idea is that God opens the book of life on Rosh Hashanah and writes the names of the people to live to the next year, and then seals it on Yom Kippur. So it's like days of forgiveness and the annulment of vows and atonement. So yeah, in the title of the poem, I say 5785, which is the Jewish year it turned last year. So it's going to be 5786 this year. And last year, a really valuable and important member of my synagogue community died. And I wrote this poem out of the grief and anger I experienced about this, and like just the idea that like he could somehow be left out of this book of life. So I write the book of life, 5785. 1. The revolution, the turning. It's that time of year again, when the air bleeds pomegranate juice and honey and sighs of relief. The time has returned again for the inscription. Only, this time, I have decided to take the pen. I am sick of throwing myself at God's knees, begging for forgiveness for all the love I have given, for all the love I have withheld, for all the love I have received. So I stage a godly coup, angelic in my resistance, biblical in my defiance, no divine stronger than the grief of those scared of dying. 2. The script writes me, of course. Anyone who's ever cried waking up after a dream. Everyone who's loved me. Everyone who's hated me. The autumn leaves, sunlight through grief, the whales. Every apology I owe and every one owed to me. Every child who learned fear before hate. 3. The truth. That this is just another way of begging, of reaching for a beating heart and praying. Another year, please, you have let me stay too long, and I have seen too much beauty to leave. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina, for sharing. Okay, so let's move on to Yona Yurwit. Hi, Yona. Thank you for being here today. Yona coordinates the Philadelphia Youth Program. She has been serving teens at the Free Library of Philadelphia for 6.5 years. Her favorite poets are Jericho Brown and Anis Mujani. And please let me know if I mispronounced that.
I think he pronounces his name Anis Mojgani, but I'm not him. If you're curious, I would recommend finding him on YouTube and you can hear him say it himself.
I will.
Thank you so much for having me at this poetry night. I am no poet, but I am a youth professional. As Joanne mentioned, I do youth services. I work at Field Teen Center at the Free Library of Philadelphia. I'm going to share a little bit about our Youth Poet Laureate program, which is intertwined with our Poet Laureate program at the Free Library of Philadelphia. So the Poet Laureate is a civic position that recognizes an exceptional poet who also demonstrates a commitment to the power of poetry to engage and inspire people throughout Philadelphia's neighborhoods. In addition to the Poet Laureate position, the program also supports a new Youth Poet Laureate each year, an honor that comes with an educational scholarship. The Poet Laureate mentors the Youth Poet Laureate, who represents the voice of Philadelphia's young poets. Both poets engage with Philadelphia's citizens through readings, events, and sometimes special projects. The Free Library of Philadelphia has been administering both programs since 2017. The Youth Poet Laureate is usually chosen during the summer, and their term lasts for the school year. So tomorrow we will be announcing the 2025-2026 Poet Laureate. So I can't tell you much about them right now because that is going to be tomorrow at Parkway Central Library at 10 a.m. But I can tell you that I find this poet's use of humor and wordplay very impressive. If you are able to join in person, you are obviously welcome. And if you're not, you will hear more about it through the library's social media and blog posts throughout the week. And in the meantime, we are really lucky to have Cydney Brown, who is essentially a graduate of the Youth Poet Laureate program and still a young leader who's contributed a lot to the program. So both the Poet Laureate and the Youth Poet Laureate are chosen by a committee that's made up of both teen serving folks from the library, including me, actual people who know literature from the literature department of the library, and various leaders in writing and poetry in particular throughout Philadelphia. And some of our former Poets Laureate and former Youth Poet Laureate are on the committee as well, including Cydney. So let me tell you a little bit about Cydney. Cydney Hope Brown is the 2023 Northeast Regional Youth Poet Laureate and Emerita Philadelphia Youth Poet Laureate. That was 2020. She is an award-winning poet, author of Daydreaming, and producer of the spoken word album Round Trip. She's a student at Northwestern University, a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and has been featured in the New York Times. She has She has recited poetry at the Philadelphia Museum of Art, Benjamin Franklin Hall, Lincoln University, and the Barnes Foundation. Her poetry explores the topics of social justice, love, and nature. Cydney wishes to inspire people to speak their truth and share her poetry with the world. And without further ado, I will let Cydney speak for herself. Thank you so much for being here, Cydney.
Thanks so much for having me. Larry, thank you so much. I've enjoyed being at your programmings throughout the years, so it's just great to be back again. And Evan and everyone who's performed, like I've enjoyed listening to your poetry, so thank you so much. I'm going to be starting off with an older poem, and then I'm going to share a more recent poem. But first, I just want to ask a question, like, have you ever felt like you've been like left out of something or you felt out of place? Like, raise your hand. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, this poem is kind of like about that. I wrote this poem because I was on social media and I saw my friends hanging out without me, and I just felt so isolated. And I was also just upset that something like social media could make me feel so sad. So this poem is entitled My Feed. Scrolling through my feed, liking pics I don't like, reading comments that make me wish I looked like that girl. I scroll deeper into my feed. I see parties I wasn't invited to, people who knew me that I don't recognize anymore. Tears scroll down my face, and I wish I could delete them all. but you can't swipe all your scars away. You'll just have to wait until they fade because filters are making you question your own beauty. And is beauty even worth it if you don't believe it yourself? When your comments are filled with compliments, but compliments can't compensate for voids inside your heart. Voids that start to tear apart someone that you see in the mirror every day, but the image keeps getting foggier and you can't wipe that fog away because you're afraid of what is left of you. A broken-hearted person on their feed. Wednesdays, I don't check it. But sometimes I forget and I see spam after spam after spam. But I don't expect to see my face there. It's a feeling I've come to cope with. Loneliness. Don't apologize for not tagging me. You know what you did. And when you tag someone in the comments, it's really not the same. Now I scroll through my feed and tears fill my eyes to the point where I can't see. And the only thing that's stopping me from being happy is my feed. Thank you. And then the next poem I'm going to read is really like a love letter to womanhood. I was talking with a friend and she was just telling me about growing into a woman's body and like the difficulty with like trying to love herself and like gaining weight and comparing her body to how it looked in high school. And I think that's an experience I've noticed a lot with a lot of women. And I kind of wanted to write about that experience. No one talks about how hard it is to grow into a woman's body. Something so simple becomes so hard. How do you teach yourself to love your tiger scars? I had to tell a girl to stop comparing her body to the way it looked in high school. Your hips can be as wide as your smile. Your dips resemble mountains. Don't you know Mother Nature is astonished by your curves? Your body is a verb, always moving, always being told to move. I'm sorry they made you feel like skinny was the only option. I'm sorry you skipped meals and sucked in your stomach till your belly ached. It's okay to give your body a break. I still get comments from whoever feels the need to comment on my body like it doesn't bleed, like it doesn't need love. They say how much I should weigh. Well, I don't let a number have a say in my health. If I move my body and eat what I need, feed on the word because God fulfills all my needs, then my mind, body, and soul will feel whole. I'm tired of being misunderstood. No, my belly is not flat, but this fat is healthy. And 1 week out of the month, my jeans are too tight, but that doesn't reflect me. I try not to cry, because why would I let pants define me? I put on my stretchy pants and dance, because change doesn't scare me. It prepares me for the future. So when my body decides to grow, I want it to know it's hard growing into a woman's body. But I love it because this body was created beautifully. Thank you. And that's it for the poems I'm reading today.
Thank you so much, Cydney, for sharing your poetry. It was wonderful. Everyone, thank you all for sharing your poetry, all of our poets and all of our leaders today. Thank you for being here and all the work that everybody's doing to keep poetry alive. I'd like to open it up now. If you want to unmute, we can open it up for discussion and everybody can ask questions if you would like. Looks like, let's see, I'll go into the chat now. Let's see. Okay, Larry, it looks like we have a question for you. Are you ready?
Yeah.
How do youth poets submit to the Young Voices program?
On our website, there's a space and there's flyers, and I'm going to send everyone the flyer, which can be forwarded. And
So that QR code takes you right to the submission?
yes,
Okay.
it's supposed to. I'm not a computer person.
Well, that's good.
And we welcome all submissions. Yeah, and we do our event of live reading at the Philadelphia Library. But what COVID did is changed us from doing everything live to doing things virtual. And what becoming virtual did is it made us national. So we're no longer a Philadelphia organization. So we tend to do two programs, one live for the Philadelphia area residents and one virtual for people from the rest of the world. And we have some friends in Zimbabwe who send us submissions
Oh, my-
from an organization in Zimbabwe. So it's really inclusive.
What important work you're doing. Thank you so much, Larry. Any other questions to our youth? Oh, it looks like Yona. Go ahead, Yona.
Yeah, it's me again. I have a question that can be answered by any and potentially all of our young poets today. Like I said, I work with youth and I see a lot of really smart and talented young people who like to write or do other kinds of creative work. But of course, they become discouraged. We're only human. And each of you is here probably despite a lot of things. And you came to this place out of a pool of many, many applicants. So I was wondering if some of you would be willing to speak on a time that you failed but didn't let it hold you back, or if you could talk about what keeps you going when you're not sure if you are a good writer or if you do have a setback.
I can take this one. So I'll talk about, I'm always free to talk about my failures because there's been many. When I first began as the first Youth Poet Laureate of Montgomery County, it was really difficult because it was a brand new program. And I would say I traveled many, many miles to libraries doing open mics where no one ever showed up. And at those times, it can be very discouraging. You're sitting there waiting for an hour, no one showed up, you've wasted a lot of gas, and you're thinking, what am I doing here? And that's happened multiple times, but the key in art really is perseverance. Without perseverance, you can never make it far. And you can see the value of perseverance just because we've come from that to this. So, the effort in trying has not gone unnoticed. And in terms of feeling uncertain about your work, I have to say, as a poet, I don't think that feeling ever goes away. You're always going to question yourself. You're always going to think, is my poetry good? Is it worth it? All those questions are always going to revolve, but you're always going to reaffirm yourself every time you write a new piece. It's like magic. You think you have no creativity left to give, but suddenly you create something new, and then suddenly, oh, I'm a poet. And then it's a cycle that repeats, but it's a beautiful cycle.
Any other youth poet want to speak to that question?
I can jump in. I love that response. I think for me, something that keeps me going is knowing that like one person could be impacted by my words. So no matter like where I go, I'm like, you know what? If people hate it, that's okay. But like if one person comes up to me after reading and they say like, wow, like I really need to hear that, that just keeps me wanting to go and read my poems more places because I know that someone like needs to hear those words and that could fuel them.
Mhm. Yeah.
I could also respond to that as well. When I started being more open about my poetry, telling people I go to poetry readings, that I won the Bucks County High School Poet of the Year, I got a lot of hesitancy and a lot of questions because people typically don't view the Muslim woman being outspoken, the Muslim woman talking about America, the Muslim woman going up on stage and speaking and being okay with being on virtual meetings or being recorded. And so it makes me feel very proud. It makes me feel like I'm doing a good thing by breaking these kind of barriers, or not necessarily these prejudice beliefs, but these kind of outdated notions about what the Muslim woman can do, what the Muslim woman should do. So in my poetry, I tend to have a motif about America because my experiences as a religious ethnic minority, you don't really hear a lot about that. And the fact that a lot of people have come up to me saying, I've never heard of someone of your background being so open, being so fearless, that means a lot to me. It feels like I'm doing real effort in like the world around us.
Mm. Wonderful. Tina, do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure, yeah. Well, one, it wasn't a failure. Like I won't frame it like that for myself, but I read at the West Park Arts Fest this summer in June, and sure, it's an amazing festival. This year, it happened to be on the same day as the No Kings protest, so it was very much not well attended.
It was raining too, wasn't it, that day?
Pouring rain that day. And I drove out there with my mom, and I had 2 poems on a piece of paper that I was going to read. And before I was on, there was like a dance group with like 40 girls and their families, and they were all there. And my mom was like, wow, it's a big crowd. And then that ended, and everybody walked away.
Oh.
And then I read, and there wasn't anybody there. Nobody was listening. And it was hard, and it was really hard. But honestly, Evan has told me his story of the workshops before, and like that is what kept me going through that experience. Because, you know, if he could do it, I feel like I should at least give it a shot. And I think it helped me like build character, for lack of a better term, and be like, this is a thing that I could endure. And if I want to share my art, I have to like share it even if nobody's listening, because you never know. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. Any other questions for the group or for Larry?
I had 2 questions. One for you, Joanne. Your program, they're submitting, and do they submit more than 1 poem? You said you had 120 entries. Do they submit like, here's my body of work, I would like to be the poet laureate, or is it just 1 poem?
Evan, did you want to speak to that? Because you were the director since day 1.
I was.
Yeah.
Now, my memory is terrible, but I believe it's 10 poems, a portfolio of 10 poems with a brief statement on a possible community service project. But when we look at that like non-evaluative, we're mainly just looking at the poem, but we do want to hear like what the writer wants to do during their term.
Great, thank you.
Of course.
And you had another question, Cheri?
Yes, I just wondered, you all are just seriously amazing. I wondered where you learned, or did you go anywhere to learn speaking so well? Like you all seem to have, I mean, maybe this is part of a poem, that's why I'm not a poet, but like you seem to have the best pauses and just a real command of your poetry. So I'm wondering, where do you learn that?
At Temple, Kamika Williams has a program called Poetry as Performance. And she's in the theater department. I think so much of it comes from experience. I mean, the first time you get up in front of a crowd, you know, you're shaking behind the podium. But as you develop speaking, you get better.
And maybe even, so like what you're saying is also we could maybe talk with some people who might be like performance people or theater people who might also be able to talk to poets about that piece of it. Because I'm always thinking of the writing and getting people in to help kids write, but that might be just as useful as a program that kids would really be interested in. So thank you.
I have a question on chat from Catherine Han Falk. Hi, Catherine. Catherine is interested to hear when the youth poets knew that they wanted to write poetry, the first experience that told them this is something for me.
I can start this one as well. I've told this story many times because I think it's so like your typical cliche origin story, but it's not when I realized poetry was for me, but the moment where I allowed myself to love poetry. I think before that, I always had the thought, I was like, why am I writing poetry? It's a waste of time. You know, coming from like an Asian American background, the arts is not celebrated in that way. So I sort of had to defeat that culture and defeat that mindset in order to allow myself to love it. But the year was 2021 and quarantine was still in effect. COVID was running rampant and Asian hate crimes were on the rise. And I remember after a Zoom class, I took a walk in the park behind my house and there were middle school slash elementary school kids who saw me and they called me an ethnic slur. So at that time, that was really impactful for me because I, first of all, never been called that before. And so I was confused. Then I was frustrated. And then I wrote a 6-minute long poem called The Blood We Inherit, The Blood We Spill about the Asian American experience. And I got to work with my school district in organizing this cultural forum that was named after my poem. And the poem became the backbone of the event. It was broadcast across the school district for 2 weeks straight. So every student knew the first line. It became a local celebrity. It was a huge deal. And the actual event welcomed over 100 people. And so by the end of that, I thought, wow, this is my first time sharing my poetry with the world. And it had such a stellar success. So what would happen if I continued doing it? And that was the question that led me to today.
Thank you, Evan. We're so happy that you pursued that. It's important work.
We've had submissions from 10-year-olds and 14-year-olds that were just terrific. And you say, how do they know this? How do they know the language? How do they know the feeling?
Any other youth poet like to respond to that question? When did you know that poetry was for you?
Yeah, I can share something. I don't have a story quite as on such a grand scale as Evan's, but it was in 7th grade, and we had to write a spoken word poem about the March on Washington, about Selma, in our social studies class. And I wrote it with my friends, but I kind of like manhandled the whole situation. I was like, I want to write this poem, and took over. And then we read it out loud and we shared the parts. And I shared it with my grandparents, and they were like, this is something that you should do. Like, this is something that you should pursue. And yeah, it was that encouragement that just got me. And I kept writing poetry. And I found out about that Montgomery County program the next year, when I was in 8th grade. And then the year after I applied, and that was last year, or this year, last school year. Yeah. And it was just a sequence of events that led to me thinking this is something I could really see myself doing in the future.
We're so lucky to have you.
It's so important for there to be positive reinforcement.
I think you're right, Larry. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I think everyone on this screen and those who have left, unfortunately, but I think all of us understand that and do that for each other. Cydney or Nilüfer, would you like to comment on that, or?
I don't necessarily have a story about when I knew I wanted to start pursuing poetry, but I knew I wanted to start pursuing writing, and it's a corny story. When I was in 8th grade, my entire English classroom, its curriculum was based about the civil rights movement. So we read Huckleberry Finn, and I love Huckleberry Finn. I'm sorry, I love the book. And there's a scene where the main protagonist, Huck, writes a letter going to return Jim, a enslaved individual who has escaped slavery. He's writing a letter telling his former owner where he is, and he's going to tell him, get the bounty, etc., etc. But Huck sits there on the stump of a falling down tree, and he sits and he thinks there, what has Jim ever done to me? Why should I do this? Just because society is telling me to do this, just because my church, my father is telling me that this is the right thing to do, that slavery is something that we must continue, why should I do that? He then decides, he has like an epiphany. He rips up the letter and declares, all right then, I'll go to hell. And I remember being in 8th grade, just being so shocked at a piece of literature that takes this stereotype of the common antebellum South, of the white yeoman farmer, of the typical racist, etc., and takes a child who's born into this, who believes in this, who fully believes, I'm going to go to hell if I don't bring this man back into slavery, but he accepts it. And that moment on, I was like, oh my God, literature can really makes us question societal's norm, makes us question societal expectations for us. And I wanted to be part of this medium that kind of inspires people to question and to dig a little bit deeper about the world around us and not just accept things at face value. So it's corny, I know, but I really did like that scene in the book, and it's stuck with me ever since.
Not corny at all. What a fascinating response. Thank you for sharing that. Cydney, did you have anything to share?
I can share. So I started writing poetry in 5th grade, and we learned about like Maya Angelou and Robert Frost, and we all had to write a poem about change. And I got up in front of my class and I read the poem, and a lot of students resonated with the experiences of transitioning into middle school. And then from there, I was like, oh, like I should continue to keep sharing my poems because like more people, sometimes people are afraid to share how they feel, but once they hear another person share their story, they're more compelled to share with others. So I just kept writing ever since.
Thank you, Cydney. I feel bad I didn't get Anika to share, and she just had to leave. Could you please, Cheri, could you please apologize to her for me? Sorry about that. Yes, we'll have to bring her back. Yes. This is something that we should do more often, Larry.
Well, let's talk about it.
Okay. So let's see. If there is no other questions, maybe we should have that be our conclusion and go off into the world and bring poetry to the dark places.
I just want to say I hope I get to write this well when I grow up.
Yeah.
I'm so impressed.
I know. Thank you all. Thank you so much for being here. And we really appreciate, Evan, you joining from your dorm room at Harvard.
I'm actually in Widener Library right now. This is not my dorm
Wow.
room.
Thank you so much. And good luck to all of you. And I hope I see you around. Have a wonderful season.